I live in a 7-story apartment complex that's mostly quiet and clean until you get involved with the HOA. And at the center of that chaos is Karen. Yes, that's her real name. Karen Dawson, HOA president for 5 straight years, ran our building like her own personal kingdom. She once fined my neighbor for hanging a small wind chime outside their window, claiming it was a noise hazard. But what she did to Mr. Donnelly crossed every line imaginable. Mr. Donnelly is a 61-year-old veteran who's been paralyzed from the waist down since his deployment. He lives on the 6th floor and uses a powered wheelchair. The elevator is his only way in or out. Despite his situation, Karen always seemed annoyed by his existence, muttering about special accommodations and how this place wasn't built for all that. 3 weeks ago, a notice appeared in the lobby. Elevator temporarily out of service for energy efficiency testing. Duration TBD. No warning, no timeline, no contact info. Just that. I immediately knew it was Karen. Turns out she'd decided the elevator was costing the HOA too much electricity, especially during the summer months. She'd unilaterally voted, without any board input, to cut power to it for a 3-day trial. No maintenance, no emergency plan, nothing. I didn't think much of it at first. I live on the 2nd floor, so stairs aren't an issue for me. But then I heard yelling through the hallway on the 3rd morning. "Help! Please! Can someone help me?" It was Mr. Donnelly. I rushed up the stairs with my friend Theo, and when we reached his door, he looked pale and disoriented. He hadn't been outside in 3 days. His food delivery had been left in the lobby. No one had brought it up because he couldn't reach anyone by phone. His landline wasn't working, and he couldn't get signal from inside his unit. He'd been rationing what little he had left in the fridge. We asked why he didn't call for assistance, and he pointed to his phone screen. No bars. His emergency call button only worked if he was mobile. He was stranded. Theo and I ran down to Karen's unit and banged on the door. She opened it with that smug, "What now?" face. I explained the situation. She rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. He's exaggerating. He's a grown man. I'm sure he can figure out how to deal without a lift for a few days." I lost it. I told her she was playing with someone's life. Theo threatened to call Adult Protective Services right then and there. Her smirk faltered just a little, but she still didn't budge. We called 911 instead. Paramedics came and had to physically carry Mr. Donnelly down 6 flights of stairs with a backup team. He was severely dehydrated and had a pressure sore from being stuck in one position for so long. They took him straight to the hospital. When the building's board heard what happened, they were horrified. Only then did I realize Karen had done this without consulting anyone. When word got around about what happened to Mr. Donnelly, the building was in uproar. People who usually kept to themselves were suddenly knocking on doors, checking in on neighbors, demanding an emergency meeting with the board. Karen, for once, seemed nervous. She issued a half-hearted email to all tenants blaming a miscommunication with maintenance scheduling and claimed the elevator was down due to a system test. Lies. We'd already confirmed with the elevator company that no such maintenance had been requested. The power to the system had been cut manually from the breaker box in the basement. And the only person with access to that panel? Karen. The board was furious. A few members even admitted that they'd been trying to vote her out for months, but Karen had been manipulating proxy votes and twisting bylaws to stay in power. But now, people were angry. People were paying attention. I visited Mr. Donnelly in the hospital the next day. He was hooked up to fluids, his skin looked pale and raw. He told me he genuinely believed he might die alone in that apartment. He kept thanking me, which just made me angrier. No one should be thanking anyone for fixing something that should have never happened. When he was well enough, Mr. Donnelly decided to file a formal complaint, not just with the HOA, but with the city's housing department and the local Disability Rights Commission. I helped him gather statements, including mine, Theo's, and several other residents who had documented Karen's harassment over the years. And then something wild happened. A local journalist caught wind of the story. They'd been digging into a series of HOA abuses across the city, and our situation was the perfect case study. They interviewed Donnelly, me, even the board president. Within a week, the story aired on the evening news. They played footage of the apartment, showed pictures of Donnelly in the hospital, and even ran a snippet from Karen's ridiculous email. The fallout was instant. Karen tried to go dark, no emails, no contact, kept her blinds closed, but it was too late. News vans started parking outside. The city launched an investigation. A lawsuit followed, filed by Donnelly's attorney. It named Karen personally, not just the HOA. She'd bypassed protocols, endangered a disabled resident, and misused HOA power for personal agendas. Meanwhile, inside the building, tensions were boiling. Someone graffitied "Justice for Donnelly" in the stairwell. Another tenant slipped a petition under every door, demanding Karen's immediate removal. Within 2 days, over 80% of the residents had signed it. At the emergency meeting that Friday, the board voted. Karen was stripped of her HOA position. The residents clapped. Someone even cheered. But Karen didn't go quietly. She stood up, red-faced, and started ranting about lazy people and how everyone just wants special treatment. She even tried to blame Donnelly for not preparing for emergencies. She was escorted out by building security. But that wasn't the end. A few days later, I got a knock on my door. It was Karen. She stood there on my doorstep like nothing had happened. No shame, no apology. Just that tight, fake smile she always wore when she wanted something. "I just came by to clear the air," she said, like we were old friends who'd had a mild disagreement over dinner plans. "There's been a lot of misinformation going around, and I figured we could talk, neighbor to neighbor." I didn't invite her in. I didn't even say anything. I just stared. She shifted a bit, clearly uncomfortable. "Look, I know you were emotional. Everyone got a little carried away, but I think we can both agree this has been blown out of proportion." I told her to leave. Calm, clear, no raised voice, just, "Karen, leave, now." She muttered something under her breath and stormed off, but that was just the beginning of her spiraling. The next day, someone filed a noise complaint against me, anonymously, of course. The day after that, trash was dumped right outside my door. A full bag, and a note taped to it. "Take care of your mess." Karen was trying to retaliate, even without her position. She had friends, a few holdouts who still saw her as some kind of authority figure. They started making things uncomfortable. Passive-aggressive stares in the hallway, weird messages slipped under doors, whispered gossip at mailboxes. But then the real legal fire started. Mr. Donnelly's attorney moved forward with the civil case. It named Karen individually and the HOA collectively for negligence, discrimination under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and reckless endangerment. The elevator issue was just one part. They included years' worth of violations, mistreatment, and hostility Karen had shown toward disabled tenants and elderly residents. The court date was set, and to make things worse for Karen, the city's housing department slapped her with a personal fine for unauthorized interference with essential services. That alone carried thousands in penalties. Meanwhile, I helped organize a community volunteer group. We checked on vulnerable residents, especially those who'd been quietly targeted or isolated under Karen's leadership. People started opening up. One elderly woman revealed that Karen had tried to evict her for using a walker, claiming it cluttered the hallway. The more stories came out, the uglier it looked for Karen. And then came the security footage. Turns out the building's lobby cam had captured her going into the basement and switching off the breaker to the elevator. Not once, but twice. She'd gone back to make sure it stayed off. The footage became Exhibit A in the court filing. Karen tried to countersue Mr. Donnelly for defamation. The judge threw it out in under 5 minutes. I'll never forget sitting in that courtroom when her attorney tried to explain her actions as misguided leadership. The judge leaned forward and said, "It was cruelty, plain and simple." Karen lost the case. Badly. But something else came out during the proceedings. Something even her allies hadn't known. Karen had been embezzling HOA funds. No one expected that twist. The building accountant, a quiet guy named Vince who'd been hired just a year earlier, came forward with documents. He'd noticed discrepancies in the maintenance budget and requested a full audit. The numbers didn't add up. Thousands had been disappearing from general repairs, landscaping, and miscellaneous services. Turns out, Karen had been hiring fake contractors, creating phony invoices, and depositing the checks into a shell account she controlled. She used HOA funds to cover everything from spa trips to high-end furniture, even a designer handbag that was found sitting on her front porch in plain view. The civil case escalated. Not only was she found liable for endangering Mr. Donnelly, but now she was facing felony fraud charges. The HOA board filed their own lawsuit. The city opened a criminal investigation. And with the elevator footage, witness testimony, and now bank records, Karen didn't have a leg to stand on. She was arrested. They picked her up in the lobby of our building in broad daylight. It was surreal, watching her, once so smug and untouchable, being led out in cuffs while half the building stood watching from the balconies. Some cheered. Mr. Donnelly watched from a wheelchair, like a faint smile on his face. The trial was fast. Evidence was overwhelming. Her lawyer didn't even try to get her acquitted, just pleaded for leniency. But the judge wasn't having it. Karen was convicted on multiple counts: wire fraud, endangerment, discrimination, and misappropriation of community funds. She was sentenced to 12 years in prison. It felt like justice, finally. In the months that followed, our building changed. The board restructured. We held open meetings, approved transparency reforms, and made it a priority to protect vulnerable tenants. Mr. Donnelly recovered and became an unofficial advisor to the new board. Vince got a proper raise for uncovering the embezzlement. And as for me, I became something I never thought I'd be: involved. I started caring, not just about my own apartment, but about everyone in the building. We weren't just neighbors anymore. We were a community. Karen's name became a warning, a reminder of what happens when power goes unchecked, but also a symbol of what a neighborhood can overcome together. The end.